Hi, everyone. We are live in our offices with Benny Friedman, singing sensation, Jewish singing sensation, Benny Friedman. And we are here on both Five Towns Jewish Times and Meaningful Minute. We're not streaming live, but we are going to present this sometime later today. Today doesn't mean anything today. Sometime in the next couple of days. Here, Benny just returned from Eretz Yisrael, and he has a brand new album out. First, for purposes of full disclosure, I should say that we are connected. And I was thinking on my way in here today that my great-grandfather is your grandfather. Your great-grandfather. Your great-grandfather is my grandfather. That's what I meant to say. Right. Let's do that again. Yeah. Okay? My grandfather is your great-grandfather. So the only difference between us is the word great.
Ha.
So the question is, what do we do with that word?
Right.
How do we darshan that word? What do you do with it? It's like an extra word.
We need a Rashi.
So you need a Rashi sikha to understand what is the word great there. That's hanging out. It's hanging out there between us. But you have, I think, it's very difficult. I'm an old pro, an old veteran in the music industry. We were talking about our good friend Nachum Siegel before we went on the mic, and I usually say I gave birth to him because he took over the program on WFMU in like 1981 that I started in 1977. Definitely long before you were born. But that was a long time ago. But everything has evolved. The media has evolved. Jewish music has evolved. And
you, correct me if I'm wrong, you coined the nickname MBD.
I think so.
Hey, if you think so, I'll run with that story.
I don't know if it's in the age of AOC
right.
I don't and IBM.
But in the 70s, it was a something.
Listen, we were forerunners to what it is to communicate as briefly, as abbreviatedly as possible.
See, now in Hebrew they write mem. Beis, Strechel, Dalet, Mabad. You see how it's it's legit.
That's how these things evolve. So, Jewish music, I could tell you the albums we used to play in those days, back in the 70s and 80s, but it really has changed a lot. And to break through and become a sensation like you have become, I don't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. That's unusual. There's a lot of guys floating around Jewish music these days. But to break through, to become so much in demand as you are, is not easy. So, what does it take?
Oof.
Besides talent.
Besides an extraordinary amount of talent,
yes.
I think it takes a miracle. I think it really does. And the miracle is usually in the form of a hit song.
So what made it happen for you, would you say?
It's like lightning in a bottle. I put out my first album, and I think it was a great album.
How long
it's
ago?
Actually coming out right now, the 10th anniversary, November.
Of the 10
November
years.
is 10 years from my first album.
Wow.
And I think it's a great album. I think it's probably still, besides maybe this new album, it's probably my best album.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no hit song. I have a song, Kad Yasfin, that became into the liturgy of Jewish music, but it took, I think, 3 or 4 years for that song to get picked up. My second album had Yesh Tikva, and it was almost like an accident. It was the last song that we added. We had almost the whole thing ready to go, and we added Yesh Tikva last minute. Ari Goldwag, Miriam Israeli, and Jan Frater produced it, and that was it. It was just like, it just exploded. And it was like, you know what I mean? Sitting in the studio, it was in the days of Yalili. Mm-hmm. And I remember I said to Avi Newmark, the producer, I said, listening to the arrangement in the studio, and I said, okay, I think this song's going to work. I think it's going to be big. Yeah. Look, it's not going to be Yalili, right? Let's not get crazy.
Yeah, we'll get to Yalili and the Eighth Day and the rest of the Mishpacha in a couple of minutes. But it is, it's something, you hear that a lot in the, even in secular music, when they used to put out singles, on 45 discs with the big hole in the middle. Very often, you had to put something on the second side,
right.
And even the time, if I remember, in the times of the Beatles, they just threw songs on there that became wild hits, and it was just an add-on. Or they planned on putting out an album with 12 songs, and they threw in number 13 to make the LP complete, and that became a sensation. So, like you said,
I think you have story after story like that. I mean, I don't know. It's not my story. Could be I'm not right. Could be I'm not correct. But I think that Shweki's Rachim, Shweki's Ma Ma Ma. I think these were both, and it's probably many stories like that where the song was a throwaway. Like, oh, okay, let's add it on, let's throw it on, whatever, an afterthought. And like, so people say, well, what's the secret? And the secret really is, there's no way to know. There's mamish no way to know. You can guess.
It's all siyata d'shmaya.
It's siyata d'shmaya.
I guess part of the big plan.
Yeah.
So Avremel Fried is your uncle.
Yes.
Right? Your father's youngest brother?
Yeah. Avremel.
Okay. I remember Avremel when he's like almost 60, I'm going to guess, or about 60, I think. So I remember I'm a few years older than him. Very few. And I remember when he was walking around in Crown Heights singing at bar mitzvahs. I think he sang at someone in the family's bar mitzvah in Ole Torah many years ago. And he was a young guy. He was a young kid. He was friends with my cousin, Shmuley Goldman.
Sure.
And they're still friends today. And I remember Avremel as, he was like the only kid in Crown Heights that had payas behind his ears.
Right.
No one in Crown Heights had payas behind their ears.
Yeah.
What was that about?
His payas lasted for a long time.
Yeah, he doesn't have payas behind his ears
Not
today.
anymore, but he had him. He had him well. I remember.
And I remember, like, I see you sitting across from me now. I remember looking at him at that bar mitzvah one evening, and I was thinking to myself, "Who's that kid?" And he lives here, and he has payas behind his ears. What's that about? But there's it probably comes from one side of the family or the other.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the subject of your uncle, he is one of the 2 or 3 great superstars going back 25 years or more already. There's probably more. So I was listening to your new album last night.
Yeah.
And there are times, especially when you go very high, when you're on the way to getting there, you sound like him.
Nice. Thank you very much.
At those points, you have a distinct sound, but there are points as your voice is, as your, what do they call it, octaves? I don't know what they call it. As your voice is going higher and higher, there's a point where you start sounding like him. And then I noticed also on the album, there's low points where you sound like him. And then you take off, and you have your own identity.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that? Do you think about that?
When I'm singing, I don't. When I listen back, I hear it.
You hear him.
But I'll tell you that when I started to sing, to start recording, I started singing, mimicking Avram Fried.
Mm-hmm.
That was all I did all day and all night, was just mimicking Avram Fried with every knetch and with every tenua.
Yeah.
And when I started to sing like professionally, I realized that it's a problem, right? Because, people my age, everybody is copying Avram Fried, right? Or everyone's copying or Avram Fried or Mordechai Ben David, right? Those are your...
Okay.
Today, not so much, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
right,
the singers who were coming up...
They are the success stories.
For sure.
And the thing about their success is that it sustains itself. It doesn't. They don't.
Right.
Mostly people they peak and they're gone.
Yeah. People had very successful runs and then disappeared.
And they go on oldie shows.
Right.
Someplace.
Right. So there's very few guys who had longevity. So I stopped listening to Avram Fried music for like 2 years because I know that when I listen to him, I sing like him. So I stopped listening to him. I listened to a lot of other music to try to collect like different colors and different nuances and things like that. And then after my first album came out, I went back to listening to Avram Fried music. I was like, oh my. And so now it's a little bit of a mix. Sometimes I fall back into it, by accident, and whatever, it's okay.
Well, listen,
could be worse. There are worse things to say about a guy than he sounds like Avram Fried.
Listen, we're living in a country where Rupert Murdoch's sons are taking over his business, Fox News, and so on. George Bush Sr., his son became president. Right. Hillary Clinton tried to become president after her husband was president. Right. So it's not so unusual for these things to run in in families. So what does he think? Does he critique your music today or when you started? What is Avremel's opinion of what you produced? Or do you run things by him?
I run things by him.
You run the songs by him?
I ran everything by him. And he's very...
You ever argue over which songs to use? You're both putting out albums.
Right. No, we never
You ever
argue.
have a tug of war over
No.
over songs? Does he
No,
ever
no,
take your
no.
leftovers? You take his leftovers? Stuff
I've
doesn't
taken
make
his
up?
leftovers.
Like what? Do you remember what?
Ivri Anoichi.
Oh yeah, he didn't want to record it.
He didn't want to record it, but look, it was a different song. The demo that Ari Goldwyn composed it was with the whole thing was from Yoinan Avi the Pesukim. We changed it to original, so it's not like it wasn't like he heard the finished product and said no, thank you. He heard the demo and just it didn't resonate in his kishkis.
Well,
so
listen,
I got it.
it's also different tastes.
It's a different taste.
You know,
it's a different style. I mean, I couldn't even even with I can't see Avram Fried singing that song. It's a little bit. I don't know. Avram Fried. I see Avram Fried singing Yesh Tikva. I don't see him singing Ivri Anoichi, but yeah, he passed on that. But absolutely, I ask him for advice all the time, and he's Baruch Hashem, he's helped me a lot, and he gives me a lot of good. And I mean, when I ask, he doesn't impose his opinion, but when I ask, he'll help me out.
And vice versa. Do you do the same stuff on his, or just
Do I help him? No, he doesn't.
He doesn't ask you for help
No,
yet.
Not yet. We haven't got there yet.
Who's busier? You or him?
I believe that Avram Fried is the busiest guy in this entire business.
Really?
And
Traveling
still at
nonstop?
hate. He doesn't have an Instagram account. He doesn't have a Facebook. He has a Facebook account, but he doesn't update. He doesn't like.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm on the road. Look at me. I'm on an airplane.
Yeah.
Still at hate.
Yeah.
He's in. Let's say he's in Israel. Probably I would say, can I know how to poo poo poo? 3 times a month, selling out concerts, weddings, birthday parties. It is incredible. Like you said, the guy, can I know how to? He's 60 years old,
That's
and he
young.
lives on an airplane. It is incredible what's going on, especially in Israel. He is like, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's fantastic. How do you distinguish the demand of the different markets, Israel versus what your United States? A lot of concerts in Israel. It's a Jewish state, so
Yeah.
Jewish music is part of the culture of the society. But in America, it goes from Borough Park, 5 towns, L.A., a little bit in Florida, Chicago, I guess here and there. You can't put together a concert for 2,000 or 3,000 people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, can you?
No, it's
You can
impossible.
put together 30, 40 people.
And in Israel, they have a thing where let's say if you do a concert in Tel Aviv, you can do a concert in Beit Shemesh the following night. You can do a concert in Jerusalem the next night, and they're half an hour away from each other. Here, you can't do a concert in the 5 towns,
Right.
and then tomorrow do a concert in Borough Park, and then tomorrow do a concert in Williamsburg.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same shchuna, basically.
Yeah, right.
In Israel, it's 20 minutes away, but nobody travels. Nobody's like, you can do 50 shows a year, all in driving distance.
Yeah,
It's a whole different.
It's also true of the weather. In America, you have to fly 3 hours to get warm weather in the winter.
Right.
In Israel, you could drive 2 hours.
Right.
And you can drive away a lot. And
Right.
and it's 90 degrees, and you come back to Yerushalayim, and it's 35 degrees. So I guess one is reflective in a way.
But
in the
also,
other.
there's nowhere in Israel where it's 35 below zero.
No. I
Right?
don't
You go
think
to
so.
Middle America, and suddenly it's like frozen.
Right, like Minnesota.
And another thing about Israel is that you can do 50 shows, and you can bring all your musicians, all your sound technicians, all your lighting technicians. Everyone can drive to the show. Here in America, if you're going to do a concert in New York and a concert in California, you're not bringing your band, especially not a 30-piece string section or whatever. You're not bringing them to California, so you're not bringing your you know what I mean. It's a whole production. So here you have to. It's a whole different rehearsal, and it's a whole different sound technician. It's a whole different the smoke machines and the screens and everything. In Israel, you pack it up and bring it to the next location. Pack it up, bring it to the next location. You have your guys who know your show, your musicians know your show, your lighting guy. Everything is like a machine. And here, every night it's mechadash, and everything also is much more expensive here for some reason. Double or triple as expensive as far as...
It's America. The cost of living is, I think, higher. Maybe not. I don't know. But so tell me, Sukkot ended when? Last week? Yeah, last week. Last Tuesday. So where were you for Sukkot?
I was in Israel. I was in Israel. We came back
did
for
concerts?
Simchas Torah, yeah.
on Chol Hamoed.
Yeah.
You came back to New York for Simchas Torah.
Yeah.
And so Yom Tov ended on Tuesday night. And so what was your schedule like for the last week? Because, I mean, we're talking on Thursday, October 31st.
Right.
In the middle of the day. You can see it's light outside. And you came from Eretz Yisrael this morning. So just take me over the last 7 days.
I was back. I came home for Simchas Torah. And then after Shabbos Bereshis, Motzei Shabbos, I flew back to Eretz Yisrael to do like a media run or something like that.
A media run?
Yeah, radio interviews and
okay, for the promote the new album.
To promote the album, and then Tuesday night I had a wedding in Tel Aviv, and then I got on a plane and flew to Toronto. Had a wedding there last night. Got on a plane this morning and came straight to the Jewish Times.
Now you're going home.
And I'm going to go home and see if my house is still there.
And next week?
Next week I'm home. And then I go back to Toronto. And then I go
for a wedding?
For a bar mitzvah. I'll be there. Yeah. And then I go to California. Some people have to run around the world to try to get some money.
Let's talk about the new album a little bit, because that's what you're here ostensibly to promote. Kulanu Nelech. I listened to that song a few times last night, not because it's the title track, because it resonated with me. It's a traveling song, and it makes you feel like, even though I was laying down on my couch and listening to it, you could tell that this is something you got to run to.
Yeah.
I was maybe get to the treadmills. You got to go somewhere when you hear this song. So, how do you decide that this is the title track of an album? Do you think that's the winner on the album, so to speak? They're all good.
Choosing a title track, for me, I look for words that have some kind of meaning. So, like a song can be a great song. I have a song, let's say, for example, Yom Echad Yavo. It's a great song, but it's not a great name for an album. Or Masim Tovim. Yesh Tikva is a great name for an album.
Yeah. So it's about alliteration.
So it's not necessarily the best song. It's just the best.
It has to be able to hit people.
Right.
Well, I didn't listen to all the songs. Very often you listen to an album, and not in this case, but very often you listen to an album and you say, "What's this guy doing? What kind of songs are these?" And then you hear it again and again and again, and it strikes you. I don't know. Is that the psychology of music? Is it supposed to not, overwhelm people, but then it grows on them? How does that work?
I don't know. I think pop music is supposed to be very easily digestible. You hear it the first time or the second time, and it's in.
Right.
A little bit more sophisticated music might take longer to. You mean like. Aliv Avecha, right? You just have to listen to it and wait for it to penetrate. But definitely, I think the rule across the board is you have to give an album at least 2 or 3 listens.
And some people like different songs, different tastes, and some people love a certain song, and some people don't see what people like about it.
I met a guy at a wedding, and he tells me, "Hey, I want to say to you that my wife loves your music. I don't. I don't like it. I like the old style, you know what I mean? We always fight about it. She likes your music, and I don't like to listen to it." So I said, I have an album, a Shabbos album, like a collection, a Shabbos collection album, a compilation.
Yeah.
Maybe you can listen to it. Maybe you both like it. It's nice and old. It's not very aggressive music. He says, "Oh, I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to take a listen." But then my wife and I were not going to have anything to fight about. I said, "Rabbi Yid, der Eibishter wird sicher helfen. You'll find something to fight about. Don't worry about it."
I'm in the newspaper business for many years, and my father was in the newspaper business. And once in a while, I hear from someone that used to read my father in the Algemeine Journal many years ago. And last year, a woman called me that picks up the paper in Borough Park. And he said, "I want you to know that my parents used to fight. And the end of the fight was, they used to argue about politics and other issues. And the end of the argument was, we'll wait till the Algemeine Journal comes out. We'll see what Nissim Gordon says.
Wow.
And whatever he says, that's going to be the conclusion of the argument. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
How these things become personal and become internalized in a very personal way sometimes. So last week or 2 weeks ago was the 25th yahrzeit of Shlomo Carlebach. So, can we say that Jewish music as we know it today started with him? and that he's still an influence 25 years
Well,
later?
he's certainly
Can
still
you
an
say that?
influence. He's definitely one of the fathers of modern Jewish music. Certainly the most famous.
Who was there before him? Was there anybody before
I
him?
don't know.
Going back in the
I don't know
50s
the
and 60s.
right.
You're talking
So I don't
about.
know the years, but I mean there was Bensi and Schenker. I mean, still today his songs are, but probably not as prolific.
He was also,
Shlomo-
Ben C. and Schenker wrote all his own songs.
I believe so. I believe
And
so.
Karlbach Avada wrote his own songs.
Yeah. But for sure, Shlomo Karlbach had a huge influence on modern Jewish music, and there's a whole genre of music that exists today that like it's incredible what he did. He basically like stamped a copyright on a style of music. Like you can't get away with composing a Shlomo style song without people right away identifying it as such, which is something incredible. So in that side for sure, but yeah, he invented a whole genre.
You know, he, of course, I go back a lot of years, so I used to interview him on the radio, back on real radio, you know, and before there was an internet.
Right.
And they used to tell me, I asked him how he wrote music, and he told me that he thinks of things on the subway, going down to the Lower East Side from his apartment on the West Side, on West 79th Street, where the Karlbach Shul is, where he lived. And he develops a tune in his head on the train, and he used to run to Delancey Street to a payphone and call his answering machine.
Oh, that's great.
And sing the song into the answering machine. That's not how it's done today, is it?
I haven't heard it done that way recently.
That's pure. That's purity.
Yeah. I mean, I guess today the closest version would be that people have voice recorders on their phone. You don't have to run to a payphone, but you have a phone on you.
Right. That was so in 1980. I think it was 1984. I was interviewing him over the phone, and he told me that this is how he records. And I asked him if he wrote anything that day. And he said, "Yeah, I wrote something this morning." I said, "Could you sing it for me?" And he starts singing, "David Melech."
Really?
I have the cassette somewhere.
Wow.
I have a lot of cassettes. I have hundreds of cassettes from old radio shows. So I have that somewhere. That should be worth something someday.
Sure.
I hope. Okay, so
It's incredible about Shlomo is that there are people who have recordings of him
Yeah.
singing songs that nobody's ever heard. He composed songs like I Eat Lunch.
Yeah.
Just he was always
Well,
composing songs. A lot of them he forgot.
He claimed that he wrote 8,000 songs. That's what he said.
I believe it. If he was alive, 8,000 days.
I had this conversation with Yossi Green once, and he says, not possible.
I think he was composing songs every 2 hours. He was composing.
I
a new
think so,
song.
too.
A lot of them sound the same.
Okay.
Could be composed the same song twice or three times, but I have no problem believing that.
Well, I want you to know, a few weeks ago, I don't know when it was, a few weeks ago, before Rosh Hashanah maybe, I went to the West Side for Shabbos, and I made my business to go to the Karlbach Shul Friday night. There's almost nobody there. We had to wait for a while.
Yeah.
But Yehuda Green was there, and he starts out, before Kabbalah Shabbos, he starts singing a Shlomo song that people never heard before. So he sang a song I never heard before. So it's possible. You know, if you are a connoisseur of American music, you know, there are Beatles songs around today that you could have never heard before.
Right.
And they either were on an obscure album, or they didn't make it, or they were on an album with some other tune that was a sensation. But there are songs from the Beatles that you haven't heard today. Anyway, Yossi Green says Yossi wrote about 500 songs, and he wrote more than Shlomo. So,
Right.
you know, I don't know who's going to win that argument. But
I'm
let them
sure
fight
that
it out.
Shlomo wrote more, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Because Yossi writes songs by the piano,
Yeah.
right?
Shlomo wrote
So
on
you
a
have to
train.
be sitting at right. Yeah,
wrote on
Shlomo
the
wrote
subway.
songs everywhere. He was just composing songs. He was always composing songs.
Do you write your own stuff at all?
I don't.
You don't.
I wrote the lyrics.
You must have tried.
I tried a few
I mean,
times.
it's a unique, it's a unique, not talent. I'm not going to say, because you're a very talented young man, but it's a unique insight that a person has. That
I saw this interview with a producer in Nashville. He says, my worst nightmare is when a guy comes into my office and says, "Hi, I'm a singer-songwriter."
yeah,
Because what are the chances that the guy is also the best singer, also the best songwriter?
yeah.
There's one talent, there's another talent. It's
It's
few and
very
far
rare.
between where you
It's
find a
very
guy
rare.
who
It's very
Can
rare.
do. Mordechai Shapiro does both.
Yeah, he writes all those songs.
I don't know if he writes all of them, but he writes.
Well, he's
he
not
writes
here
very
today.
well.
He's not here today, but I've seen him a few times. He knows what pop music is.
Oh yeah.
He knows how
Oh,
to.
yeah. He's a real pop star.
To get an audience going. But I think I saw you perform on Pesach. Where were we? What was the name of that place? Where?
Bordeaux.
Bordeaux, yeah. I think you incorporated a lot of Shlomo Carlebach music into your concerts. Are you doing that? Does everybody do that? Is it standard?
I do it on Yom Tov,
Yeah.
right, where it's a little bit more laid back and everybody just wants to have a nice, easy time. Also, if you're going to do like a Yom Tov medley,
Right.
you're just going to end up singing Carlebach songs.
Right.
I don't do it every night, but
You know the famous story with him and Mordechai Ben David that Mordechai Ben David was in, I think, Zurich for a concert. And a few weeks later, Shlomo was there. And after the concert, people said to Shlomo, "Don't you sing anything original?" You know?
right.
It's about what's the story probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about, your mother's my first cousin.
Yeah.
And your father's my first cousin by virtue of their marriage for many years now. So, Avremel's your father's youngest brother. Is he the youngest? And I know the rest of the family. And then there's the Eighth Day Boys,
Yeah.
who are your cousins,
Yeah.
your first cousins from the other side, right?
Yeah.
So there's like a thread of talent that runs through the family. Has that ever been discussed, around the Shabbos table or at family
Sure.
gatherings?
What's also interesting is that Eighth Day are my cousins, and they do have the songwriting talent.
And they have a different sound.
And they have a
you and
different
Avramo.
sound.
That's
Could be
because
the
they're-
California influence. I don't know what it is
California,
exactly, but they have a different sound. Yeah. There are also colors where you hear when they're singing that
Yeah.
that's Avram Fried
You hear it? You can
related.
hear it?
Sure.
You can hear it? I have to study it closer.
But they compose. They're great. They're talented musicians. I don't want to call myself a musician necessarily.
So tell me about the what's the buzz in the family about this ability to perform on such a high level where it grabs large numbers of people from recordings and from live concerts.
I don't know.
Is it in the generation before? Anybody else?
I just
perform?
heard. The story goes that my great grandfather, my grandmother's father, came home one day and said, "I heard a Balkaida in Shul, and I think we should make a shidduch." My grandfather was a Balkaida, and also I'm named after my great great grandfather. And the Bluzhever Rebbe today, I met him a few months ago in Williamsburg, and he told me that his grandfather, the Tzvila Tzadik, that my Elter Zayde was the Bal Tfila on Rosh Hashanah by the Tzvila Tzadik, the original Bluzhever Rebbe. So apparently singing and music is a big part. When my grandfather was arrested in Prague and he was beaten up and all that good stuff, they found in his diary where he promised Hashem that if he gets out alive and sees his family again, he made several promises, and a lot of them are music related. He said he'll sing Zmiris every Shabbos. He'll be careful to sing Zmiris every Shabbos, and he will never listen to any non-Jewish songs. Like it was a very music. I don't know exactly
So
why.
music oriented.
It's very
tonight.
yeah. It's very a lot of had to do with Tehillim, which is also music.
Could be. So, what other? Is there anybody else in the next generation in the
Eli Marcus
Friedman family that has this kind of musical talent? And Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of young kids floating around,
Yeah,
and teenagers and so on.
There's a lot of talent in the family. Kanai Nahara.
Yeah.
A lot of musicians, a lot of guys with beautiful, beautiful voices, great Bali Tfila. Some of them, my nephew. Some of them have.
Who's your nephew?
I have a nephew. Sruli was a great musician.
Sruli
Friedman.
Friedman from where?
Minnesota. My nephew Yankele Friedman from Milwaukee actually sings on one of my on the Shabbos album. He sings "Shabbos is going away," and a lot of the talented folks in my family just aren't pursuing it professionally, but you hear them daven on a Shabbos, and you're like, "This is great."
So tell me about the differences between Israeli artists and the American artists. They don't come over here to America to perform as often as the Americans, like you yourself and Shweki and Bremel and Mordechai Ben David go over there. So it's
true.
Not,
I don't know.
It's not equal.
It's not equal. It's
So
a strange
there's
thing.
something about the Americans that appeal to the Israelis, or there's not a lot of, I don't know, people that necessarily not born Israelis that appreciate.
I don't know exactly how to explain it, but and it's specific in Hasidic music, right? There's not a lot of.
I mean the Israeli stuff. No, the so-called secular Israeli music.
Right.
I don't know who. I don't know. Shalom Chanach, is he still around?
I don't even know who that is.
And Tzvika Pick, those guys from the olden
Right.
days. I don't think they have appeal over here. Very, very rare. Poogie.
I don't know.
Remember Poogie?
No.
Never heard of Poogie. Never.
Does he sing? They sing.
Donnie Sanderson and Poogie. That's one
they
of the
didn't
greatest
do-
Israeli groups.
They did.
Nati Lechayai.
It became a big hit in the wedding scene over here.
Oh, Yo-Ya.
Yoya.
Yoya. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
They sing
yeah.
Yoya.
I went to a Poogie concert in Town Hall many decades ago. You know, I think it was like the late 1800s.
Yeah.
And it was really good. It was really good. But you don't see them. I mean, there are guys like Yoram Gaon
Right.
who has great appeal, but you see him once in 5 years.
Right.
You know. So,
That's true.
but you guys are, like you say, you're popping over there
Right.
every month.
I don't know.
Avramel's there 3 times
It's
a month.
interesting.
he said.
Avramel's there. Basically, now in the Frum scene, it's basically Avremel and Yishai Ribo sitting at the top, and it's like it's unbelievable what's going on in the music scene in Eretz Yisrael. It's like it's exploded. It's really. I mean, it's a huge bracha, Baruch Hashem, and it's mamash incredible to watch. But also in Israel, what's interesting that's going on now is that a lot of the secular artists have this like frum or religious or God-oriented tilt that didn't really exist, years ago.
Like who? Like they're becoming, Balei Tshuva? Is that what?
Some of them are
what's
becoming
happening?
Balei Tshuva, and some of them are not becoming Balei Tshuva, but still like the Yiddish neshama is like popping through. Avremel does a lot of duets and live concerts with a lot of like secular Israeli artists, and they all have 1 or 2 songs that Avremel can sing because it's like it's about Hashem, it's about the Yiddish neshama, it's about something. He just now did a concert with a guy called Mookie, and Mookie has tattoos all along his arms, and he said. I'm going to make sure to wear a jacket because I'm going to respect, you know what I mean? I respect the audience. And then at the rehearsal, he was doing a certain song and he says, I'm going to change the lyrics here because I don't know if my original lyrics are matim for this item. Like very respectful, very, they want to, they want to be, understanding. It's not like there's no angry, you know what I mean?
There's no friction.
There's no friction. It's beautiful. Mamish, a beautiful thing that's going on.
That's fantastic. So tell me, what's your favorite song on the new album? Or if you have a favorite song?
I would say...
I mean, the title track, I think, is it's another big hit.
Bezrat Hashem.
But what are the sleepers, so to speak?
What are the sleepers?
I'm going to listen to a few times more. I'm going to say, now I hear it.
Right.
What do you predict? Which one?
I hope.
Then I'm going to go home. I'm going to listen to it tonight.
Yeah. Well, we have a song there called Charasho.
Okay, I'm looking at the album. That's what I'm looking down at.
It's song number 4.
Bishvili, I like Bishvili also.
Bishvili number 13. You got so far.
My notes are on here. Yeah. Oh.
I think it's one song after the other. Fantastic. I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn.
Yeah.
But I think it's really a great album. But if you ask me what's my favorite song, Ehov. That's my favorite.
Which one?
You're not even asking. You're just saying. Ehov is great. Tashiru is great. Kulanu Neilech is great. I mean, and Biadayim Tovot. Biadayim Tovot is a beautiful, beautiful song. Tenli is a great song.
I heard Tenli is very nice.
Yom Echad is a great song, and I mean, it's really a great album. Yehudi Zachi is a great song.
Yes.
I mean, tell me another name.
Here's the list.
I love this album.
These songs,
I don't want to.
Some of them are still growing on me. I only heard them for the
Ambition.
first time last night.
Hakol Milamala. Masim Tovim, I think, is a beautiful, beautiful chuppah song. Bishvili. But I just think that Charasho is it has all the elements. It's got a Psachidish, right? It's a little bit Russian. People don't know exactly what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it's English also, which is also different from most of the album. And it's very fun. It's got a nice breakdown. We took an old Russian song and used it as the breakdown. And we're going to have a music video ready to go soon, hopefully. And I hope, I predict with a lot of hope that Charasho is the next.
How many times, when you understand, we're gonna let you go home soon, but how many times is a typical song recorded until it is good enough for you to be put on the album?
So what happened here in this case? Usually, not in my experience, I would record a song 4 or 5 times, and then you go through it and pick the best take of each phrase, and then yalla, you have a recording. What happened with this time around is that a few months ago, probably a year ago actually, I did a concert in Memphis, Tennessee on a Motzei Shabbos. Mm-hmm. And in the audience was a guy called Tzvi Silberstein, who's a singer, and I had never met him. He lives in the 5 towns here. And after the concert, he came over to me and he said, listen to me very carefully. I heard you do things at the concert here live on a Motzei Shabbos, like after the chant, that I've never heard you do on any of your albums. Mm-hmm. This doesn't make any sense. This is backwards. You're supposed to do things on the album that you cannot do live. You're not supposed to do things live that you don't do on your. That's backwards.
It's a good observation.
He said.
What was he talking about?
Vocally. Mm-hmm. Vocally, I was reaching notes or certain colors. I'm not sure exactly what he heard at that show, but he said, we're going to have to do something about that. Anyway, we recorded a duet. It's not out yet, but he schlepped me to Donnie Gross in Flatbush's studio. Mm-hmm. And we recorded that duet by him, and that was it for me. I completely fell in love with that studio, with these guys, Donnie and Tzvi, and I said, I'm going to re-record everything that I had recorded for this album. Mm-hmm. We re-recorded there, and we changed certain songs. We changed the key, brought it up a little higher, and every song, Tzvi sits in on the session, Donnie Gross together, and they squeezed and squeezed and squeezed out of my voice every last drop. And I'm listening now to this album. When I listen to it, I go, who is this? I never sang like this before. And when I go back to listen to the other albums, I go, oh man, how I wish I could go back and re-sing those.
And the music was already on a track? You didn't have to re-record
most of it. We had to re-record some of it, yeah.
So you got to bring a whole orchestra into the studio.
It was a little bit of an avodah, but it
also
was
expensive.
And it was very expensive. But what do you don't do?
So it's easier to download. You buying a CD is talk about an avodah. Buying a CD is an avodah. Downloading an album is it's just hitting a
double click
button, double click.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what they want me to double click. I was looking on the phone last night. I'm a little jam.
Double clicking is for the new generation.
I said, what do they want me to double click? I was clicking on where it said double click and nothing happened.
Yeah.
And I finally saw
there's a button on the side.
It was pointing to this.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I figured I'll try this. I don't want the phone to explode in my hand.
Right.
But I double clicked it, and that
scary technology.
Took me like 4 or 5 times to finally. Finally download the album. But downloading albums, I guess you could reach the world easily.
Yeah.
So the ability to sell much more albums exists.
Absolutely.
On download, although we're still in a transition between. Is there a transition?
There is a transition. I heard a rumor.
All the time people know how to download, that's for sure.
I heard a rumor that that Apple wants to stop selling music, bichlal, and only stream. Because that's where people are going. I put out a notice that my album is available on iTunes. 90% of the people go to Apple Music, and they go, "What? You just said it's on iTunes. I don't see it." And I go, "No, it's in the iTunes store. That's a different app." People don't buy music, so it's a big struggle, and it's a very, very tough transition. But I mean, the world keeps on spinning, and we
But
can't stop it.
CDs still sell
CDs do sell in the Frum
here
community.
or in Eretz Yisrael?
Here more.
Here
in
more?
Eretz Yisrael, less.
Borough Park, Williamsburg,
Yeah.
Monroe, I guess.
Yeah.
Muncie, probably.
Yeah.
That's probably about it.
Yeah, but I mean, those are big areas.
Sure. Population in Baruch Hashem is bursting.
Yeah.
And that's good. It's been great talking to you, Benny
Shak Koyach.
Friedman. His new album, Kulanu Nelech. It's a great sound. It's bursts into a new direction, which is not so easy today.
Right.
In these modern times, and it's great to be able to spend a little time with you and explore what's going on inside your talented head and your great voice and your ability to perform is extraordinary. And thank you for joining us.
Thank
Yashar
you.
Koyach.
Let's do it again.
Kol tov, hatzlacha.